What's up? It's Jets. I'm here to do my predictions for the 2024-2025 NFL season. Now, I know I didn't get to do this before Ravens Chiefs yesterday. It is what it is. I couldn't be in the house to make the video yesterday. Whatever. Anyways, it's not like that result really changed much. Just a quick recap. I don't feel like there was a terrible issue on either teams or anything to make me feel differently about where I had them already. Now, that Ravens O line, maybe it's something, maybe it's not, but I guess that's for the rest of the season to decide. But Chiefs got out with off to a hot start compared to last year. They lost to the Lions. It didn't end up mattering, so not really putting too much stock into this one game for either team. They'll both be in the playoffs. Spoiler alert. But still, we'll see. We'll see what I have for the rest of the AFC, as that's where I'm going to begin. As you can see on the helmet and the channel name, it's all about the Jets. Jets, baby. And so we're going to start with the AFC East. Don't worry, I have this poorly drawn up paint diagram that I've got here. I'm going to show it to you after every division, just so you know where I'm at. I'm going to put them, first, second, third, fourth, from left to right, because I didn't have enough time to make a cool graphic. Okay. But we're going to start. Oh my God, it's dark as hell outside now. But we're going to start with the AFC East. Who do I have at the bottom of the AFC East? The bottom of the AFC East. We ain't even got to do it, man. We ain't even got to talk too much about this. It's the New England Patriots, man. I can't be bothered with the New England Patriots anything. I can't be bothered with it. It's like there's nothing going on there in New England. Finally, as somebody who was terrorized by the Patriots since I was double-digit years old, they're bad. Thank Christ. They're terrible. They are not even starting Drake May. I don't know what the fuck's going on there, man. I'm not even going to spend too much time on these guys. For once, they're not worth talking about. So, thankfully, hopefully, we won't have shit to talk about for the rest of the season, to be honest. I feel like this is a team where you make your pred and, you call it there. There's nothing to say. They ain't got shit going for them. Ain't shit happening in New England this year. They might win. They're going to win a few games. They might beat us once just because, that's just how karma works, I guess, these days. But, they're fourth. Nothing to really talk about. Now, third. Who's finishing third in the division? I've got the Miami Dolphins finishing third in the division. I don't think, after the last few years, they're getting into the boat of, well, we know your offense is good. We know. I promise everybody knows your offense is good. What else, though? You gave away all your young defensive assets, Christian Wilkins, a few other guys, and I don't really know what you're going to be on defense. And if I don't know what you're going to be on defense, when you're the Dolphins, clearly you've got the offensive pieces to just truck teams over. What are you going to do when you actually need to play a low-scoring game, get down and dirty, and actually need to win a game 10-7, 13-10, 13-7, anything like that? I don't believe you can do it. And I definitely don't believe you're going to do it in the postseason, because I don't have them making the postseason. There's only going to be two teams from the AFC East to make the playoffs this year. And that, of course, will be the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets. I have the Buffalo Bills finishing second, of course. I mean, what did you expect? What was I going to do? What was I going to do? Going to turn on this camera just to tell you that the Jets were missing the playoffs? just to tell you that they were going to finish second, maybe third, maybe squeak it. No. This is the year. This is the time. And because we are the Jets, I understand. Everybody doesn't get it. Everybody's not going. Everybody sees the New York Jets and they think poverty, can't win, won't win. Doesn't matter. Aaron Rodgers coming back off of Achilles, it doesn't matter. They're going to lose. But this is all I got to say. And obviously I got to rant because this is my team. If any other team, any other 31 of the other teams have this exact offseason, everybody would be singing praise. They upgraded their skill positions. People didn't really think, middle of the road, maybe below average last year. You add Mike Williams, a guy which I don't know where the injury narrative comes from. Don't know where that comes from. If anybody looks at how many games he's played throughout every season of his career, he usually plays most of the games in a season. Sure, will he miss a few games maybe because he is coming off of an injury? Sure, he might miss a game or two. But everybody's going to have somebody that misses a few games. And at this point, Garrett Wilson, clearly top tier receiver. And by top tier, I really mean the top about dozen or so, because there is so many great receivers right now. But, I mean, he has 2 1,000-yard seasons under his belt, Offensive Rookie of the Year, with Zach Wilson throwing the football. And if everybody was telling me he was a bust before he was drafted, a bust when he got signed, and when he showed that, maybe this game's a little too fast for him, everybody looked at his pro day and was like, yep, he's going to get somebody fired. If I heard all of that during the pre-draft process, post-draft process, and now he's on the Broncos, not even starting week 1, why are we now holding it against the rest of the team that the offense was bad? He's gone now. We have upgraded our skill positions. We have drafted a few young running backs. We got a whole stable back there. Mike Williams, we drafted a receiver. He's going to play more slot. He's probably not going to play the outside, but that's what you got Mike Williams for. And that's what you have veterans on the team for that can help you out in other ways. Offensive line, upgraded. Tyron Smith, we don't like him anymore. I get it. Injuries happen in football. But we only added good pieces. If any other team in the offseason adds to every group in their offense in a positive fashion, and if any other team maintained a top 5, I would say a top 3 defense. Bias, but top 5 just for, just for the sake of. If any other team maintained a top 5 defense, added everything that you could have wanted to the offense, everybody'd be like, oh, watch out. They're going to make it. And I get it. Vegas, which, hopefully maybe I'll dive into a bit to some bets, in future videos, but Vegas has us winning the East. Cool. But public opinion would say that they're finishing 3rd at best, not even sniffing the playoffs. And I can't co-sign that. I'm not here to co-sign any Jets hatred. I'm here to be a ride or die. I've been on the ship way too long. To jump off now, that just wouldn't feel right. And of all the seasons where I actually sat there and was like, yeah, we are going to be bad. Yeah, actually, we're going to be bad. We're going to be bad. Fuck, we're going to be bad again. Yeah, actually, we're going to be bad. It is what it is. I mean, now's the time. All Aaron Rodgers has to do is be a top 18 quarterback. That's it. That's all. The Bills, I'm too eager to talk about the Jets, but I'll talk about the Bills real quick. Josh Allen, great QB, top 5, top 7. I mean, some people have real hate for Josh Allen. I don't. We always, we usually take a game off of him anyways. So it's not even like there's a reason to really hate. At the end of the day, where's your weapons? Keon Coleman, I actually like that. I will go under the assumption that you have a wide receiver one in Keon Coleman. You can have that. Now what else? You don't have any running game anymore. I mean, you started to get some at the end of last year, but I don't see it. If Josh isn't manifesting everything in this offense, running the ball, I mean, I don't think they can just hand the ball off, play smart passing football, and do the same thing they've been doing the last few years. Last year, the Jets weren't at full strength, so I think there was a little bit of a mirage there. If we had more pressure on them, I feel like, especially the end of their season, could have went a little bit different. But again, just to run this down, not believing in the Patriots at all. Patriots fans, maybe Drake May gets in there. Maybe you have something to care about. Don't know why the fuck they're doing that, but I'm not here to talk about the Patriots and what they aren't doing because they're not doing anything all year. The Dolphins, I have them finishing third because at some point their offense has to regress at least a little bit. And for me to come up here and say that I have confidence in their defense, hell no. I watched them go to Buffalo last year and get 40 put on them. And like I already said, the Buffalo Bills weren't even that imposing last year. So that's the AFC East, man. I'm going to give you guys a look real quick at this paint document that I've got. Ta-da! There we are. Jets number 1, Bills second, Dolphins third, Patriots fourth. That's going to be the NFC East, or AFC East. Stamp it. That's what the AFC East is going to look like. Don't really have much to say. I mean, I'm obviously putting all my chips on us getting better and making this a reality. But at the end of the day, it's going to happen. And, the more people come to terms with it, I think the better the season will be. All the nonsense that we get talked about. Aaron Rodgers, he missed mandatory minicamp even though he was here every other day. And everybody understood that, and nobody gives a fuck about people who aren't relevant in the Jets locker room. Okay, cool. I don't care. We're going to be top of the AFC East. We're going to kick it off with a win on Monday, and it's going to be great. Where do I want to go next? I'll go down. We'll go to the AFC North. Baltimore Ravens, they played yesterday. But honestly, their offensive line, they'll get it figured out. Even so, I mean, Lamar literally had a historical performance yesterday. Them losing to the Chiefs isn't something I can tax them for. People are going to lose to the Chiefs if they show up and they have a great game plan. And if you have your missteps, Lamar lost a fumble. Their offensive line shaky. They were getting, the refs are a whole nother discussion. I'm not liking what I see already from that. But when do you ever love what the referees are doing in the NFL? I mean, it's just, it's a foregone conclusion. So for this division, I'm starting at the top. The Baltimore Ravens, they're going to win the North. I have no problem saying that. I don't really think there's another way I can go with this. The Ravens are going to win the North. I promise. The Ravens will win the North. Now, the rest of this division is kind of interesting. Where do you go? Where do you go here? Do I sneaky pick the Steelers? Do I think they're going to work it out? Do I pick the Bengals like everybody else would? Or maybe people would pick the Bengals to win the North right now. Do I pick Cleveland because, Deshaun Watson, he's got it in him? He's got it. No. I don't know. It's hard to tell where to go with the rest of this because there's so many glaring issues on all three of these teams' rosters, in my opinion. But, you know what? Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to shake some shit up. So somebody's got to make a difference here. That's why I have the Cleveland Browns finishing second in this division. Second in this division. AFC North, I got the Cleveland motherfucking Browns. Cleveland, shout out Cleveland. It's an okay city. I mean, it was pretty alright when I went there. Can't say much about it, but what I do know about the team is that you will not be able to run for this division. I promise. This is a high mark for the Browns. I get it. Most people aren't going to have them finishing second. But one thing they do, and I know this because I'm a Jets fan, they do play defense over there in Cleveland. They will play defense. They will make every single division game hard. And what I do know about their offense is that, you know, they are anemic with pieces, and I do know they could run that fucking ball. They could run that pill. I'm not putting a ton of stock into Deshaun Watson though. And you might think, well, if you don't think they can pass the ball and you don't think they can win the division and do much by running, how would they finish second? Well, it's because I simply flat out don't believe in these other two teams in the division. And finishing third in the AFC North has to be the Cincinnati Bengals. But this is the thing though. Just like I was saying with, you know, the Browns, the defense is always okay. In their case, you know, they're actually never really that good in the regular season, which, I mean, at some point you got to prove that you can be elite to really make a difference for me. But the big reason I have the Bengals finishing third is because how many grace years are we going to give Joe Burrow? He was great once. Went to Arrowhead, against Patrick Mahomes, beat him. Went to the Super Bowl. I thought it was a fairly decent Super Bowl. I was rooting for the Rams though, because Stafford's one of them dudes. A little bit of a foreshadowing for later. But Stafford's one of them dudes. So, at the end of the day, it's been a few years since not only have they been really that great, Joe Burrow is not a guy who's going to play 17 games, be healthy for every single one of them, and for that alone, I can't really do much with them, man. Their defense is never really on the tier of Cleveland's. And I'm out. I'm out on Joe Burrow, man. I'm out on Joe Burrow. I can't do this. I can't do this again. I can't do it. I can't sit here and say, oh, the Bengals, they're going to make noise. They're going to make waves, you know. They always start slow. I mean, last year we were looking at them like, I mean, come on. Like, are you gonna move? Are you gonna make that, you know, make a jump? I mean, first 4 weeks, it's slow. Burrow, you get injured, you try and play, you know, game time decision, you don't end up playing another game the rest of the year. I'm done. I'm out on the Bengals. If Joe Burrow can play a full season, then I can see them and the Browns swapping places for second in this division. I'm not coming off of the Ravens winning the division. They're gonna win it. The Bengals, go to third, man. Like I can't do it. Out of pure just, it almost gets me mad when I think about how the people rank the Bengals. Why? We get it. I get it. Joe Burrow is great. He has been great. Hopefully, you know, he can stay relatively healthy and he can have a long career where, you know, I can look at this in 6-7 years and be like, oh, he actually did go win a Super Bowl, and this early part of his career is just a fluke. But, you know, that first year, his O-line was terrible. I'm never going to be somebody that is so critical on the quarterback for things that are obviously not in his control. But that's not really an admiration. It's a trend. Like, he's gonna be hurt every year. It is an ad. I don't know. I'm trying not to go in on the Bengals right now. I get they have the receivers, Jamar, T. Higgins. This year, this will be the last year. For a team that's pretty much in the same boat as Super Bowl or bust, nobody talks about them like that. People don't realize that they're going to lose their second best receiver. They already lost Tyler Boyd, their third receiver. And when we used to talk about the Bengals, we're like, yeah, receiver core, top in the league. Now this year, Jamar Chase, top three receiver, clearly. T. Higgins, probably one of the best wingmen, receiver twos in the league. Cool. But when he's gone next year and you can't pay him, when the defense only gets older, I'm calling it early. Calling it early for the Bengals. Third, they're not making the playoffs. I only have one team making the playoffs in the division, and that's the Ravens. Spoiler. Browns, you aren't making it either. They're going to be able to run the ball. Hopefully Nick Chubb's at least 80-90%. If he's not, then this is where them and the Bengals can flop. But I don't think both of them are making the playoffs. One of them's going to sneak in, I guess, actually, now that I think about it. One of them is going to sneak in. Fuck it. The Browns will be in the playoffs, but they're going to just be another first-round exit. If Deshaun might be able to fool somebody come that time, and you might think, oh, they might win a game. But no. Unfortunately, coming in last. As of right now, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. I can't. They clearly have the worst offense in this division. I can't. What's the saving grace for them? Obviously, it's the defense. This division is known for playing defense. They're gonna play defense. TJ Watt, when he's out there, you're going to have a decent defense. But when I seen the Deontay Johnson news earlier in the offseason, didn't really think much about it. And then I stumbled across the Steelers wide receiver room as of right now, and I was like, They have George Pickens, which he's cool, but, he hasn't done anything stand out. And when you say, look, he had Kenny Pickett throwing the ball. Well, Garrett Wilson had 2,000-yard seasons with Zach Wilson, so if you're that dude, you will show that you're that dude. I don't really know if George Pickens is that dude. And if I don't know he's that dude, and if you ask a lot of random people on the street, who are the other Steelers receivers, they're not going to know. And if you don't know who you're throwing to, and nobody fucking has a clue on who's going to make the difference at the quarterback spot. Justin Fields, I would love for it to be Justin Fields. Be dynamic. Be Lamar-esque. Be him. Be like that. I would love that. Especially interdivision. That would make a lot of things way better for the Steelers. Especially when you have a defense that's that good. The reason why I have the Jets at the top of our division is because I think the offense clearly is taking a massive step forward. With the Steelers, it might actually take a step back. I know they get a different offensive coordinator, and that was a lot of their problems that came, last year. But, it's hard to make sense out of what they're about to do here on offense. It's hard to really tell what difference they're going to make. How are we going to get wins? Last year I think they beat the Texans, but they had to hold on for dear life. Had to. And I get it. The Mike Tomlin, oh, yes, you gotta be 500 just because. I mean, I don't like that. Eventually, it's going to end. And that, I mean, shout out Mike Tomlin. He's a really really good coach. And I'm looking at it now. They didn't beat the Texans. That wasn't who I was mentioning. They got demolished by the Texans. But anyways, like a lot of their wins, they're barely scoring 20. They have a few 30-point wins last year, especially towards the end. Cincinnati, but Burrow was hurt. Their defense isn't that great, so that's okay. Division rival. They beat Baltimore at the end. They beat Seattle at the end. They ended strong, but in the middle, losing to the fucking Cardinals, losing to the Patriots, they always have those games where it's like, what the fuck? One game you can win without much of an offense because your defense gives them every opportunity to win. I don't know. It's hard to do the Steelers. They're one of the harder teams to rank. Would I be surprised if they finished second in this division? I actually wouldn't. But do I think they're going to make the playoffs? No, I think if they finish second, that kind of means that Cleveland and the Bengals took a bigger dive even than what I was expecting. It's hard for me to see the Ravens and the Steelers being the two that makes it out of the North. I'm just going to have them fourth. It is what it is. This is what obviously they're not even. This is a random. This is makeshift paint, but that's the North. That's the East. As of right now, in the AFC, I have the Jets, the Bills, the Ravens, and the Browns making the playoffs. And I had that little, brain fart, if you would, thinking about who's making it in the North, because I'm going to go to the South. The South, I'm not going to spend much time on the South. Again, this is going top to bottom, because the top, it doesn't need to be explained. The top team in the AFC South will once again be the Houston Texans. They're kind of, they're Jets adjacent. Defense, obviously good. They're young. Kind of stepped onto the scene, made a lot of noise. Obviously, C.J. Stroud had a great rookie season. And, there's always a sophomore slump. But I genuinely think because he plays in a division that's not that good, he's going to win most of his division games. And if he can do that, he's going to win the division and they're going to get to the playoffs. I don't need to see much more from the Texans. We've seen, it's really just stay in the same stratosphere you were last year and you're going to win this division, in my opinion. Now, the rest of this division, people probably have the Jags in here. Jags second making the play. I don't have the Jags second. I don't have the Jags second at all. The second place team is the not New York. I'm too soon. We aren't in the NFC yet. The second team in the AFC South is going to be the Indianapolis Colts. Anthony Richardson, I have some pause on the QB position, but when you do what they did last year, when he didn't even really play much, and now you're rolling out there with Gardner Minshew and company, it's like, okay, they made you respect them because their head coach, he proved he can hang. And when you can prove that you have a head coach that's good and you exist on both sides of the ball, their weapons are to me. At some point you're going to have to really decide who's going to be running the ball. I thought that was weird last year, Moss, Taylor, when Taylor came back. That's interesting for me to see who's really gonna grab Anthony Richardson by the arm and be like, yep, me and you, last year for the Texans, Nico Collins, Tank Dell. Yes, we will. We're going to walk with you, CJ. Their run game wasn't great, but I mean, for the Texans, I push the run game to the side because at the end of the day, they're going to air that bitch out. The Colts, a lot more question marks, but it really comes down to me not believing in the Jags at all. I don't believe in them. So somebody's going to have to finish second. And I think as long as the Colts build off of what they had last year, or at least, stay honest, stay around the same, you can finish second in the AFC South. I think this is a weak division. The Texans are the only team making it. The Indianapolis Colts won't be making it for me. Now, third place. I mean, this is where the Jags are supposed to go, right? This is where the Jags are supposed to go. But I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. The Tennessee Titans are finishing third in this division. Why? Why should you believe in the Tennessee Titans? Well, I just think Will Levis showed that, in the midst of the team not really being great last year, I actually think that when it comes to arm talent, he at least has got some of it. We had to see Malik Willis take snaps for this team, and God, Lord help us all. Everybody that was watching Malik Willis take snaps a few years ago, like, man, bless your soul if you had to watch that version of Titans football. But I think Will Levis actually has a chance of showing, you're going to have to give me a second contract because at the end of the day, I'm going to do enough to where you're going to be like, the kid has it. Going to have to still build around him at the end of the day. They are going to finish third in this division, not anywhere close to a playoff spot, in my opinion. So they're going to still have things to work on because at the end of the day, they haven't really hit reset yet. I mean, they've been kind of lingering. They added Calvin Ridley. Like, they're giving Will Levis a chance to show and prove himself. And that's really all I'm seeing this year from the Titans. I'm not seeing too much. Now, the elephant in the room. I mean, the elephant in the room. I mean, I'm going to throw it up. There's somebody missing. There's somebody missing here in the AFC South. And, of course, it's the Jacksonville fucking Jaguars. Shout out my friend Monkey Man. He called Trevor Lawrence last year. I mean, he's, after year one, I'm always okay with giving young QBs a grace year. Because at the end of the day, it's the NFL. It's the highest level of football. It doesn't really matter where you were at college. I think we all understand that it doesn't really fucking matter where you played college ball unless you were playing in, like, D2, D3, that the jump is what it is. And he had Urban Meyer fucking around, just making a scene. I mean, scratch his first year. I mean, outside of a miracle comeback against the Chargers, I mean, he played okay against the Chiefs, but I'm looking at that as that was just a blip on the radar. That's not who he is. I don't think that's what Trevor Lawrence is. Trevor Lawrence, he lost weapons. I mean, when you think about it, Trevor Lawrence is kind of where Josh Allen is this year in terms of who's with him, who can you really count on, and the defense is okay. I mean, you like Josh Allen. I mean, you would like to think they've made progress on the rest of the defense, but their defense wasn't great last year, and I don't believe in Trevor Lawrence, and he has less people to throw to this year. And can he stay healthy? I mean, that's what his entire last year was, and that's what it was a few years ago too. He's got these little nicks. Iron Man, he'll play through it, but when you have a fumble problem, him and Josh Allen, like I said, when it came to personnel with them on the offense, Him and Josh Allen, it's the same shit. Turnovers. Josh will throw a pick where you're like, what the fuck? Week 1 last year, Aaron Rodgers tears his Achilles. My life is pretty much fucking over. But I watched the rest of the game. I'm like, Josh, what the fuck? You're really about to let us win this. And we win. But he comes back. He might give us another one. But this time he's going to win because he has that ability on the ground. Trevor Lawrence isn't going to scamper like that. He's a little too lanky. So when you're a little bit more one-dimensional and you're in the same spot, I don't have the faith that I'll have in Josh Allen to make the playoffs and carry the load. I can't do that for Trevor, man. I think at the end of the day, you have a great coach, but when we have an overrated ass quarterback with not really much help. I mean, he wasn't really doing much when he had the help he did help. Now, I will say he doesn't have he didn't have an overwhelming amount of weapons. We weren't like, oh, Zay Jones, Calvin Ridley. This is a top 4, top 5 duo. Bombs away for the Jags. Nobody was doing that, but now you don't even have that. And he's overrated as fuck. Yeah, fuck that. We're putting the Jags fourth. There's always somebody every year where you're like, okay, how did that happen? How did somebody go from worst to first like there is every year? How did somebody who was, okay, at least around the middle of the pack, jockeying for their position, how did they fall? And there's always somebody like that. And for that, this year, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. In the AFC, that's who it is for me. They gotta tank. They gotta go down. I mean, they can finish third. There's a world where Will Levis really ain't that guy. The Mayo commercial is the highlight of his career, and they really just are old, decrepit men that can't put it together, and they finish fourth. But I don't think the Jags are making the playoffs. And fuck it. I'll take the unknown in Will Levis over what I think to be overrated, overhyped, and just simply outmatched by the rest of the conference. Jags finishing fourth. That's what the AFC South looks like with everybody else. Only one team from the South making it, and that's the Texans. But now we got the AFC West. And again, I mean, we can start from the top. There's no wondering what's going on here. The Kansas City Chiefs are winning the division. This isn't I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, maybe the Chargers, that new magic finna hit, Mahomes' downfall. As much as I would love for the Chiefs to not be great and terrorize this whole conference, the reality has to be the reality. What the reality was with Brady is we were going to fucking lose at least once to him. We aren't winning the division. If we make the wild card, we had our AFC champ runs. We felt good at one point. Nobody else in the AFC West has had any success so far. When's the last time the Chargers won a playoff game? Not with Justin Herbert. The Raiders, they made that run. They made that. They made not a run. Trust me, they didn't make a run. They made it in. Interim head coach. That was cool. Lost to the Bengals in round 1. And, I'm not going to put stock into the Broncos. I mean, Chiefs win the AFC West, man. There's nothing to say. And obviously, this means I have 2 AFC North teams, Ravens, Browns. 1 in the South, the Texans. I am not picking 3 teams to make it from the AFC East like some people are. Jets and Bills make it from the AFC East. Who else is making it then? 1 more spot left. Who's making it from the West? Well, I mean, Not really too many surprises here. The last spot, they're going to beat out the. They're gonna beat out one of the AFC North teams. They're gonna beat out the rest of the AFC South teams. That's the San Diego Chargers. The motherfucking San Diego Chargers. We're not fucking around with no Las Vegas, LA Chargers, man. Fuck that. The San Diego Chargers are making it. And, I think John Harbaugh, him and his brother are fucking phenomenal. I mean, you don't go head to head as brothers in a Super Bowl for being okay. You don't win a national championship with Michigan last year being ass. I just think it's in the Harbaugh blood, man. He showed up, and it's just gonna be different, man. That defense. Now, usually with a defense taking their steps back, like I think it looks like there should, because I mean all the old guys just didn't work. They were dumping cap into everybody, and it just wasn't showing on the field. It just wasn't showing. But now you have a defensive genius. The Anthony Lynn's and I forgot their last coach's name. I forgot what his name was. But yeah, brain fart. I mean, he was so bad. I mean, Justin Herbert, his weapons also aren't great. But unlike Trevor Lawrence, I actually can see that Herbert, if he has the right game plan, I feel like Justin Herbert can make the receivers not matter as much. That's where I'm at with Justin Herbert. He's gonna have to win a playoff game for me to pick the Chargers to do anything relevant. It's kind of disrespectful to him, to be honest, but he's getting into the Joel Embiid category, to use a cross-sport reference. Until I see you do it, I'm not going to predict you to do it, just because we're now at a point where it's talent, talent, talent. Yes, we get it. You've got talent. But you gotta put the rubber's gotta meet the road. You've gotta be able to do it in the postseason, man. You can't be a regular season warrior. You can't be a regular season warrior and continue to miss playoffs, blow a double-digit lead to the Jags when it looked like you had it signed, sealed, and delivered. Can't be doing it. But I do think that the Harbaugh bump and Justin Herbert will be good enough to put them in the playoffs over one of those North teams, over the rest of the NFC or the AFC South. I think the Chargers are going to be the second in the AFC West. Now, no funny games. Everybody knows the bottom two in this division. These are going to be some of the worst teams in the league. When I was talking about the Jags and the Steelers, I don't necessarily see them picking top 5. Especially with a coach like Mike Tomlin and a defense like the Steelers. And a Jags team which has a Super Bowl winning coach on it. I can't really hate too much on it because there is talent to be had at certain spots on the Jags roster. Finishing third, I was torn. I'm actually going to go the Denver Broncos, finishing third in this division. Now, trust me. I am not going to sit here and find reasons to hype up the Broncos. Quarterback, I think they're going to be abysmal at quarterback. I don't give a fuck if it's Bo Nix, Zach Wilson, free agent acquisition, a blockbuster trade. Their quarterback position is going to be bad this year. Their weapons, I mean, who the fuck is even there? I'm actually, this is bad, I'm one take. I'm not editing any of this, but I absolutely need to go see who the fuck are the weapons on the Broncos that are actually promising. I didn't pay too much attention to their draft. Maybe they drafted well. There's sleepers on there. Cortland Sutton's still there. I forgot about Cortland Sutton. They stole Josh Reynolds from the Lions. Lions' second leading receiver. Maybe he can be your second leading receiver. But, I mean, a part of what made the Lions so good was you knew they could run that fucking football. You knew they had a good offensive line. You know that whatever they were going to do behind the line of scrimmage could be a positive. I don't know that the fucking offense for the Broncos can do anything. I don't know if they can do literally anything. Javonte Williams, he's cool. But when you had no hope last year and looked that bad with a veteran QB in Russ, when his numbers weren't even really that bad, I'm expecting their quarterback play to somehow be worse. And again, I'm looking up and down. They got Pat Surtain. He just got his money. Shout out Pat, PS2, great nickname. But you're a lone wolf back here, man. You are a lone fucking wolf. John Franklin Myers, former Jet, salute. It's not going to be enough, man. It's not going to be enough to make a difference. You guys got fucking rolled. You guys got fucking rolled last year by the Dolphins. By a 70 burger. Lost by a 50 piece. Sean Payton, Super Bowl winning coach, but I haven't seen you in the modern NFL do anything that makes me think that you can be who you once were. If you don't got a smash mouth style this year, I don't see you winning, many games at all. Like, you might win games off the strength of, the Raiders being ass and maybe having a few other teams where you can match up and catch them on a bad day, just like any other team. But I'm looking at their start, and it's Seattle. You'll know how I feel about them a little bit later. I think they're okay. Whatever. Pittsburgh, I have them finishing last in their division as well. But the AFC North fourth place is not going to be the AFC West fourth place at all. They're going to get rolled by the Steelers because their strength is defense. And when you have no factors throwing the ball, I wouldn't pick you on my worst day. And the Bucks, I think the Bucks, they're still decent. They're not winning that either. I see them going 0-4. And obviously they play the Jets in New York week 4. Don't think we're going to have a question about who's winning that. We went into their place after, getting some nice revenge for Nat Hackett. If you look at my Twitter, that's the cover photo. Him and Makai. Bust Makai, but, Makai, being all hype because they went and did that highlight of the season pretty much at the beginning of the year. But I see them starting off 0-4. They can maybe get their first win again week 5 against the Raiders, who are going to finish last, as I already said. I mean, the Raiders, they might have a slightly more of a factor at quarterback with Gardner Minshew than the Broncos. Actually, man, fuck this. I just talked about the Broncos so long, I can't. I actually have to switch. I have to switch. The Broncos are finishing last because I remember that the Raiders at least have Max Crosby, Devontae Adams. They have superstars at their positions. Yeah, actually, I can't do this. I'm gonna stop myself. I was confident with pretty much everything else that I had, especially up until this point. But talking about the Broncos, just really seeing what they have on paper, which I haven't done with pretty much most of these teams because I know the rosters, enough to put them in a spot without having any games played besides this one that happened yesterday. But yeah, no, the Broncos are finishing fourth. Again, they might be top five. They're going to be picking top five, actually. The Raiders might too. They might find themselves in that top seven. But I mean, the Raiders, you don't really have much to lean on either. You traded away Josh Jacobs, the only player that I thought could have had an impact last year, but their offensive line is so ass. He didn't really get off like he's accustomed to, and the start of his career, he's gonna light that shit up with Green Bay. I mean, you're throwing to Devontae Adams, so your quarterback can't be so bad. But there's nothing to really, the Raiders, they're going to pull out a few decent wins because they have, a star or two on the defensive end. And they got Devontae Adams, who's going to cause trouble for the rest of the guys. But bottom of this division, there's nothing to really fight about. Broncos fourth, Raiders third. This is the NFC. Or the AFC. Why do I keep saying NFC? The AFC. This is what the AFC picture looks like. And for the AFC Championship game, we're going to go straight to it. Straight to the AFC Championship game, and I'll let the NFC Championship hang until I'm done with the NFC. I'm going to pick the winners, and then I'll pick the Super Bowl after the NFC. But the AFC Championship game, I mean, the Jets are going to be there, of course. Why would the Jets not be there? Why would the Jets not be here? The Jets are going to make the AFC Championship. I mean, it's a reality that a lot of people aren't going to, they're not going to really see it coming. I mean, the Jets haven't made an AFC Championship game 14 years. They haven't made the playoffs in 14 years either. But let me tell you something. Defense is something that the defense always gets helped in the playoffs. Because teams start trying to play conservative. Like, they don't really love playing their game. That's what happened to the Ravens in the AFC Championship game last year. Lamar stopped running. I'm looking at my screen like, Lamar, fucking run. The Jets are going to run the ball without their quarterback good enough to where they're going to take a good chunk of their offense into the playoffs. And their strength, the defense, I don't think they're going to take a step back, man. They're going to rattle off a win or two. Now, obviously, with the seeding, there could be a pretty tough matchup before they get to the AFC Championship game. But as long as they're not seeing the Chiefs, I'm picking them. I'm going to pick the Jets regardless. I mean, even if they face the Chiefs, I'm going to pick them, of course. But do I have a legitimate, thought of them beating everybody else besides them? Yeah, of course I do. So the Jets are making the AFC Championship game. Who's in that other spot? I could go chalk. I could pick the Chiefs and go chalk. Or, I could pick a sleeper. Do the Chargers, do they just go on a random run? The Bills figure it out? Texans and Ravens feel like, yep, we're here. We're still here. I think the Texans, when it comes to the Texans, I think, you might expect some regression there from, whatever side of the ball, maybe both. But I think their division is the worst in this conference. So they're going to get their fair share of wins and gonna have one of the top 2-3 seeds. And I have the Texans. I have the Texans making it to the championship game as well. I think, I'm picking against the Chiefs, and I'm sitting here, and before I said the Texans out of my mouth, Am I going to do this again? Am I going to do this for another year? Am I going to pick against Mahomes? I think at the end of the day, picking against such historic history is actually a high percentage idea, a high percentage play, if you ask me. I think at the end of the day, if you are gonna prove me wrong by making such outstanding history, go ahead. I'll be wrong. If you go to a third straight Super Bowl, win it or not, fuck it. I was wrong. But in terms of pride, I don't give a fuck that I'm wrong if you went and did something that nobody else has been doing. I just think you're not gonna do something so outstandingly historic. So I have you tripping up within the first two games, not making it to the AFC Championship game. And the AFC Championship game, the two representatives are going to be the New York Football Jets and the Houston Texans. I think, there's nothing to hate about CJ Stroud. I think if there's anybody as poised as him, or if there's anybody poised enough, if there's anybody that has that bounce back factor, I feel like it'd be CJ Stroud. So I feel like regardless of how their season goes, I think they're winning their division, and I think they're going to meet the Jets in the AFC Championship game. And that's the AFC. Now on to the NFC. I don't think I want to do this in the same order, because the NFC, there's a lot of debate to be had in the NFC, in my opinion. I sit here and I look, there's there's not really any division where I can look at and be like, I know exactly who's winning that division. A lot of my discussion in the AFC was all of the teams not winning their divisions, because I feel like that's the middle of the AFC is where you're going to see the movement at. The NFC, I feel like the bottom is the bottom. The bottom is the bottom. Like the Patriots, Broncos, and the Raiders of the AFC, I think you have your NFC teams where, yes, they will be awful. They will be bad. And I guess I'll start with the least interesting division. That's how I'll do it. We'll start with the least interesting division, which is obviously, as it is every year. Even if Tom Brady's throwing the football in this division, it's the worst division, the least interesting division, the NFC South. What is the NFC South going to be? I think the NFC South, hard to tell whether Bryce Young gonna make his step. The Saints, how long is their coach gonna last? How long is Derek Carr gonna last before we see Spencer Rattler in there? How long is it gonna be before they realize, wait a minute, our defense is old and still not that good? When are they gonna blow this shit up, man? Like, I almost want to put the Saints at fourth, just because I'm fucking tired of them being not horrendous, but not even really good either. There's got to be a year where they crash, and fuck it, this will be the year. I'll call it. The New Orleans Saints ain't gonna make it out of this year with no relevant changes to it. There will be a fired coach. There will be there will be a Spencer Rattler starting. Something's gonna change. Something's gotta shake up, because you've been so mid to below average now for a few years with no real gotcha. This is how we're gonna come back and be back towards the Breeze era. Nah, I'm not seeing that shit. It's the New Orleans Saints at the bottom of the NFC South. I just can't do it this year. I just can't. I can't do it. Second to last. Am I gonna pick the Panthers to be over the Bucks? Hell no. Bottom two is pretty clear here. When I talk about picking top five, picking top seven, these are two prime candidates. It seems like every year we're having the same discussion, but I'm willing to ride a trend if I don't see any break in sight. The Chiefs, I'm not riding the trend of picking the Chiefs because for the trend to continue, you got to do some historic ass shit. And I get it. You have historic pieces and players and a coach. But the last combo didn't do it. So I'll be okay with being wrong. The Carolina Panthers being ass. For what reason would I have to pick them to be second in this division? Absolutely none. I actually think Bryce Young is going to be at least a little bit better. I like Xavier Legette. They picked him out of college. I thought, they're at least trying. They're not going to have a 30-year-old Adam Thielen catching the most passes for them, hopefully. If they do, the rest of what I'm saying is probably right then. They're just going to be awful. But, hopefully this year for them is progression. Shit like that. Second in this division, do I go with the Dirty Birds? Do I switch it up? Do I take the unknown and put the Bucks second? I'm picking the Atlanta Falcons to finish second in this division. And I pick them to barely miss the playoffs. Very trendy pick for the Falcons. I did my preseason bets, and I was looking at it. I just couldn't pull the trigger. Couldn't pull the trigger on the Falcons winning the South. I think I love Kirk Cousins. He's going to get around 4,000 yards. Kyle Pitts is going to finally be able to exist in this league and show at least some of that talent we saw at Florida. Everybody thought when he got picked, this is the next generational tight end. But when you have quarterbacks who shouldn't even have a roster spot on a single team throwing you the ball, it's impossible to show that. Same with Drake London. It is what it is for the Falcons. All their pluses are obvious. They got a fucking quarterback with a pulse who's going to get his shit off. Regardless, the injuries are the injuries, but I personally think that Kirk Cousins never gave a fuck to get out of the pocket anyways. So as long as he manages to not re-injure it and he can get through this season with relative health that's not that knee, I think the Dirty Birds, Falcons finishing second. And I got the Buccaneers winning the division, man. I think they're going to do it again. I think at the end of the day, Mike Evans is a Hall of Famer. Baker Mayfield, he could be the best quarterback in this division. He could. If I look at this at the end and see Baker being better than Um, Better than Kirk Cousins? I wouldn't bat an eye. I mean, he's shown, at least here in Tampa, that he has his weapons. O line, the leftovers from the Brady team, and whatever's there, it's good enough for them to win a playoff game. Which for a lot of these guys and a lot of these teams, I can't say the same. I don't know what the Falcons are gonna do when games start mattering. So I'll be safe with this division, and I will pick the Buccaneers to win. I think their defense is getting to the point where you need to inject some more life in there. We know who the guys are on their defense. Their DBs are nice. They're cool, but our linebackers, who's rushing the passer, who is gonna make that defense one to be feared? You go against the Buccaneers, you don't fear their defense because they're just missing something. That's why I won't have them going far into the playoffs, but I do think they can repeat as AFC South champions. I think it's definitely on the table. And to be quite honest, who else? If it's not the Falcons or the Bucks, there's only two. There's only two real options here. So I picked the Bucks. So this is what the NFC's looking like. I fucked up the logos on this, but who cares? Bucks, Falcons, Panthers, Saints. In my opinion, only real discussions at the top. The rest of the teams, it is what it is. Hopefully they'll have some reason to watch games this season. I mean, I'm a Jets fan. I know what it's like to go entire seasons, an entire half decade where it felt like every week I was setting myself up to have a bad Sunday. But there's the NFC South. I'm going to go to the NFC East. The NFC East. Oh, the NFC East. The division that rarely has a repeat winner. When I look at what happened last year, the Cowboys, great regular season. Dak had his best year. The Eagles, the Jets, Jets, were the reason why they fell off. We beat them, and it just seems like they didn't have an answer the rest of the season. They fell apart. Played a playoff game where they didn't even want to be there. It's hard to tell. Now, guys like Nick Wright have him tell it. The Eagles are missing the playoffs. Well, what I can tell you, what I think about the Eagles, is that Jalen Hurts is teetering towards the Trevor Lawrence category more than he's trending towards the Josh Allen, Joe Burrow when he's healthy category of. He is, right now, I think he is overrated. I think he has done the 1 year where, they made the Super Bowl. He had a really good year passing or running the ball. He's was an okay passer. And last year, you looked at it and was like, okay, he can still kind of run the ball. The tush push is really good because of Jalen Hurts and Jason Kelce, who isn't there now. But I just think, Lamar is a generational runner. And yesterday, for instance, he showed that if his receivers could actually fucking get open, he can make a few passes. Jalen Hurts, they air it out to A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith all the time. But I still need to see him have a year where it's like, yes, he did both at either a high level or an above average level. And there were games where they won because Jalen Hurts was the best player on the field. I want to see another season of that. Do I think it's this season? No, I don't think that's this season. I think I have the Cowboys running it back for the first time in a while in this in this division. I have the motherfucking Dallas Cowboys winning the division, baby. I think they got it this year again. I mean, you will not catch me putting the Cowboys in any championship discussion. On any level. You gotta do that shit for me to wanna pick you again. Prove me wrong before I go out on that limb, Cowboys. But what you do is win in the regular season. What Dak and CD do is form a top combo in the league as far as passers and catchers of the football. Running situation for the Cowboys, I lean more towards, I get it, they have no names running back there. You got Zeke Elliott back, but who fucking cares? I mean, that doesn't move the needle at all. But you weren't really moving the needle running the ball last year either. And I think everything is relatively the same in terms of defense and offense. Obviously, Jerry Jones is going to love the flashing lights. That's what's going to be their calling card. That's what's going to be in the news every day. But one thing I can't hate is they win games, man. They win games, and there's no reason, barring an injury to a few key pieces, that they can't run this shit back, man. But I did start on a little bit of an Eagles rant. But one thing I can't do is leave them out of the playoffs and leave them out of top two, especially can't leave them out of top two in this division. I just can't. The Philadelphia Eagles will finish second. They will make the playoffs. I think Saquon, that addition's pretty good. Is he going to make much of a difference from the running game they had last year? No. No, I don't think so at all. But you still have the star power to really make that difference, though. Like, if Jalen Hurts not having a great game, I think Saquon Barkley can carry them to a few wins. Not by himself, of course, but he can be the key factor in a few wins. And I think as long as they keep that together, I don't think there's a reason to keep them out of the playoffs. Their defense, like I said with the Jets offense, many considered them to be bad, especially their secondary. Now, their D-line was actually not actually bad last year. Jalen Carter is a beast. And whoever else, Bryce Huff, shout out Bryce Huff. You're going to get yours too, my boy. I kind of wish we brought you back. The Hassan Reddick shit is kind of whack because the media doesn't really know what's going on. But Bryce Huff is going to eat. Jalen Carter is going to eat. Will that motherfucking secondary help? Just help. And you would think I'm talking about a team that was barely missed the playoffs and was ass. This team finished 11-6. They can do that again or even get another win or so on their resume this year if their secondary is just palatable. Can you guys show you have a brain? If you can, you'll make the playoffs. You'll be fine. You'll be an X factor. You'll be an X factor in the playoffs because, I mean, even though I don't have you winning it, I definitely trust you more than the Cowboys to make a difference in the playoffs. So for what it is, I'm not out on the Eagles. They're going to make the playoffs. They're fine. Bottom of this division, we're going to go straight to the bottom. There's not much to talk about. The New York Giants will be finishing last, and they are a prime tank bowl contender. They are prime miss the playoffs contender. 100%. They are on. They're on that watch. I think them and the Broncos, them and the Patriots, because I think it's going to be hard to see Sean Payton with the first pick. The Giants and the Patriots are prime first pick candidates. Them and the Saints if the Saints go belly up, they got a chance too. I think as they're constructed though, I think they are safely a tier above those two dumpster fires. There's nothing to talk about with the Giants. Daniel Jones, the sooner they move off of him, the better. Them paying him though, I that means I have no sympathy. When players or teams opt into contracts that are obviously bad for them as a player or them as a team, well, what do you want me to do? You want me to be sad because you gave Daniel Jones money that everybody knows he didn't deserve? Fuck no. Start rebuilding. Hit the bricks. You're going to be ass this year. And, you know, they drafted Jalen Hyatt, which he was electric at Tennessee. You know, draft him another fucking receiver. You need to draft him 3 more. You've already drafted him. You already drafted that offense 2, but you need to draft him like 7. Malik Neighbors is going to be dynamic when he gets a quarterback. Just like Kyle Pitts and Drake London in Atlanta, I will not pick him in any fantasy. I will not be taking his yards on any parlays or bets until you get a fucking quarterback. Or prove that you're that dude to the point where him being ass doesn't matter, which is something I don't think is possible for Daniel Jones. The Giants are finishing last. That means the 3rd place team is the Washington Commanders. And, you know, I don't think they're in contention to make it to the 2nd spot. Nick Wright had them finishing 2nd, which is fucking insane. This is why, you know, sometimes, you know, some TV people get carried away with their takes. Because I just think that's crazy. You can think Jaden Daniels is going to be really good year 1. But the thing about Jaden Daniels and the Commanders that's different from CJ Stroud and the Texans is that DeMeco Ryans was an incredible defensive player and defensive hard nose. And CJ said, okay, you carry the defense with your intellect and your coaching ability, and my sheer talent and my IQ is going to take these other young guys on the offense. We're going to take off. I don't think Jaden Daniels quite has that. I think when it comes to him being undersized, I get it. He might be a little bit, of an injury risk until he beefs up a bit. That's okay. He has Terry McLaurin. Curtis Samuel's gone, but he has Terry McLaurin, and I think Terry McLaurin gets lost in the shuffle because he had Sam Howell throwing fucking 80 picks, and he just didn't have a consistent guy giving him the rock. So when he does, people are going to realize he's a top 12 to top, 20-ish, however you think of the receivers, their depth in the NFL. Scary Terry's going to be up there if he's not already on your list. And that's the AFC East. There's nothing else to really say. Dan Quinn, he was okay. He's pretty decent at his last stop in Atlanta. I mean, clearly they had something going on there, cooking. Should have a ring, but that's for another day. It's another topic video. But I think Dan Quinn can do enough to where they're not going to be abysmal. They're a team that I feel like they're going to have a statement win or two where it's like, okay, this is what the future is going to be for the Commanders. And then the rest of their games are going to be blowout losses just because they're not that good, or close games where they don't win because at the end of the day they're out talented. I think that's what's up for the Commanders, and that, all in all, is the NFC East. I pretty much have this looking the same besides the Commanders and the Giants swapping. I'm going to do the NFC North next. Psych. I'm going to go with the NFC West. I'm going to go bottom to top here. I think at the bottom is hard. This is just a tough division for me. Because on one hand, I think Seattle clearly has the better baseline heading into the year. But when it comes to that, them shiny new keys, man. Shiny new keys, like, oh, Kyler Murray, man. You had Hollywood Brown and stuff. Here's Marvin Harrison Jr. Clearly wide receiver one in the last class. That's why he's here. I think as long as Kyler stays upright for 17 games, I don't think they're finishing last. I don't think they're finishing last in the division. I have the Seahawks bottom feeders in the NFC West. Now this conference is going to be competent. This is going to be a competitive conference. This is not the conference where I think a top pick is going to come from for sure. I think the Seahawks can do enough to where they're like, okay, they weren't miserable all year. I think Geno, he had his 1 year, didn't write back. That's cool. But at the end of the day, you showed who you really were last year. This isn't year 2, year 3, 4, where you're going to be like, okay, those little snafus he had, he can bounce back. No, you already bounced back, and you are now back to Geno Smith. You are Geno Smith. We know who you are. You lost a Hall of Fame coach, so I don't even know what the leadership is going to look like. There might be games where they lose based off of coaching alone, and that's not something I could really say about them before this. So I have the Seahawks being last in the NFC West, which means the Cardinals are third, because I am not going out on a terrible limb in this conference or this division. The Cardinals are going to finish third. I think I'm a pretty high on Kyler, man. I think he's one of those guys where even though he's not the best thrower of the football, he doesn't have a Josh Allen arm. He doesn't have a Will Levis arm. He doesn't have a Mahomes arm. But one thing he does have over Mahomes, over what he has over Will Levis, what he has over, kind of in the same boat right now as Jalen Hurts, in my opinion. When he runs the ball, he is so dynamic, so effective, that I think as long as Marvin Harrison Jr. is what we think he is, I think his passing can at least take a decent enough step to where this time next year, as long as those, their low-key rebuild, as long as they kind of keep fueling it, keep getting better, because we all know they had no fucking pieces to work with, and they're, getting it back on track. I think this is one of those teams where you can, at the end of the year, you're like, you know what? Wasn't as bad as people might have thought. And, the guys who we were happy about, they showed their ass, and they showed that, you know what? We have something to look forward to. And that's where I think the Cardinals are. And second in the NFC West, I think, last year it was the Rams. They made the playoffs. And, really good round one game against the Lions. 49ers just can't seem to get over the fucking hump. And For the Niners, I have the Niners not winning the division this year. I have them finishing second. I get it. They have the same team. But one thing that I can't help myself but to do is I charge teams for I charge a lingering tax, man. Like I did with the Saints, just in a different way. You've been so good for so long. I get it. You made the Super Bowl with Jimmy G, Super Bowl with Brock Purdy. Always at the top of the conference every year. You still have the all-star studded squad. But Purdy's not going to be perfect. I don't think Purdy's going to have the cleanliness that some people might think. I think when I see Brock Purdy, I see a ceiling. I see Brock Purdy, I see a guy where, well, seeing him without the weapons would kind of be cool, just to see where he really is at in terms of putting a team on his back and saying, I'm that dude. He doesn't have to say, I'm that dude right now. He can say, okay, Debo, take this reverse for 20 yards. Kittle, get open across the middle when I need you to. Brandon Ayuk, I can go to you on any third down I want. You can get another 1,200 yards this season. Cool. Christian McCaffrey, Offensive Player of the Year. If you stay upright, one of the best running backs in football. Nobody's arguing it. But there's got to be regression somewhere. From teams that don't get over the hump, I feel like the regression is easier to believe. Trent Williams just came back. He's 37 though. How long is he going to be the best left tackle in football? How long is the rest of the O-line going to help him? How long are their offensive schemes going to carry them over mid and bad teams? When are they going to start showing that, damn, maybe we need that guy at quarterback? Maybe the defense takes a slight step back. And I think the slight step back that I expect from Purdy, a bit of from the defense, I think their skill guys are going to be great. I mean, again, CMC, can you be healthy? If you can, now there's no questions on their skill positions for me. But, and that's it, man. That's kind of where I'm at with Brock Purdy and the 49ers. I think they finished 12-5. I don't see them winning 12 games. I think they could win 10. If they win 11, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think there's a few of those games where there might be a few of those games this year you'll be like, head scratchers. How did they lose that? And I think that'll be good enough to push them to second, because I think a team that finished with 10 wins that wasn't very impressive, if you would, because Aaron Donald wasn't quite Aaron Donald, you know. He's gone. This is going to be pretty much a whole year where you're like, okay, we drafted defensive end Jared Verse out of Florida State, drafted my boy from my hometown, Braden Fisk, second round. We're going to try and make this a feared D-line again. And everywhere else on the defense, they're young, really young. And I think when you're talking about a team that's not old, you're talking about a team that's younger. I think Sean McVay I think he's on a Hall of Fame trajectory. If you don't want to put him in there now, I think he's on that as long as he wants to keep coaching for another decade or so, however long he wants to do it. I think as long as he's there, you got young guys with talent on the roster. No reason for them to be bad. Last year they kind of started slow. Stafford got injured. They were kind of floating at sea level for a while. I think as long as, Injuries. I don't like predicting injuries. I think it's something to maybe keep in mind when you're making a prediction. But all things considered, I think the Rams will be the ones to take that NFC West crown. I think they can jump the 49ers with one or two extra wins from last season. And I mean, there's the offense. I don't need to talk about the offense very much. You have Matt Stafford throwing the ball. He's not gonna be. He's not gonna be ass. He's not gonna be bad. He's not gonna be below average. I don't even think he's gonna be. He's gonna be above average. He's Matt Stafford. And when you talk about duos in terms of receivers, the Rams might have the best duo. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. And, I mean, if you want to just throw a Chiefs duo out there, sure. CeeDee Lamb and whoever's second, whatever. You could do whatever you want with that. The Texans receivers, if you really fuck with them that much. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. I think there's only 2 to 3 duos where you look and you're like, yeah, those guys are better than them. But I don't think they go beyond 4th in terms of receiver duo in the league. And at the minimum, you can't be bad with that. You can't be bad. Kyron Williams, last year I was like, damn, they don't have anybody running the ball. What's that going to look like? Well, they could show that they can have 100 plus yards some weeks running with Kyron Williams and whomever else might be there. So I'm okay with putting the Rams at 1. That was my major change here in this division. Now, the division actually looks kind of different because it was San Fran, Rams, Cardinals, or Rams, Seahawks, Cardinals. I think everybody moves to a different spot in this division. Rams winning, but I still have the 49ers making the playoffs, of course. The East and the West will both have 2 representatives for sure. The South is not getting... If the South gets 2 teams in, then that sucks because it means, at least to me, it means a team that's actually fun with storylines didn't make it. And that would be a team from the North or most likely the West. That probably means the Rams didn't make it, maybe. 49ers collapsed and they didn't make it, but I doubt that. But those are my 5 right now. The North. I'll give you just one more look at it. That's where we're at right now. The North. A lot of debates about the North, man. We're going to get the bottom out of the way, though. The Vikings, the Minnesota Vikings will... I mean, if they don't finish last, what happened? What happened to these other teams? That if they get a 3rd place finish, that means somebody collapsed. Because quite frankly, I don't think they're going to escape 4th place by being good. By being good enough to do it. I think at the end of the day, you are... With J.J. McCarthy being injured and being out an entire year, you're now at a spot at quarterback. You actually might have the least enticing quarterback room in the NFL without J.J. McCarthy. I'm looking, I mean, at least everywhere else you have a star, a vet that has, maybe he can bounce back, a young guy where like, okay, we can see maybe he can prove himself a little bit more or prove himself at all. With the Vikings, you don't have your young guy to even see if he's worth anything. And you don't have backups that are fun to watch. I'm never going to turn on a Vikings game and be like, maybe Sam Darnold could line it up this game. Fuck no. Not happening this year, man. It's unfortunate for the fan base because with a lot of these teams like the Commanders, the Cardinals, the Panthers, I'm like, maybe something exciting can happen, especially with the quarterback. That's really the big thing in the NFL. Do you have a quarterback? I feel like they can at least get closer to the answer. The Vikings, you can't make progress on your answer this year. And you lost Danielle Hunter, probably your best defensive player. Harrison Smith is getting old. He can only make so much of a difference as a safety. I mean, you have Justin Jefferson and Alexander Madison. But the thing is, we already know those two guys are decent or great in Jetta's case. Other than that, no reason to watch the Vikings this year. They're going to finish last in the NFC North. This is where it gets interesting, man. I've seen the Bears be number 1. I've seen the Bears be number 2. I've seen the Bears be number 3, which means I've seen the Lions and the Packers. These 3 people have them in different spots. And this is tough, man. Projecting Caleb into the league year 1 is tough. Because you can say, well, CJ, he projected great year 1. But what I think is weird about the Bears that people just decide to not pay attention to is like, yes, you added Montez Sweat and the defense looked like they had a pulse, and the corner Jalen Johnson locked him up. That's great. But I don't really see the whole, oh, he's coming into the best team of any rookie ever. Really? The Bears? The same Bears that the same poverty Bears from the last few years? I get it. They won 6-7 games last year, but that's not indicative of greatness in the making. Their offensive line was still not great. I get it. They could progress, and for sure their weapons are good now. Their weapons are good. I can't sit here and say he doesn't have help on the offense. He does. But the thing is, man, Caleb Williams, say what you want about the USC defense, but there's a path where the Bears defense isn't great either. And then it's just like USC where he can win, the out of conference games, the cupcake games. But rubber needs to meet the road. Can you put us on that platform? Can you put us on the next stage? He couldn't really do it. I don't know if he can really do it this year either. First year in the league, man, that's going to be growing pains. He can move with his feet out of the pocket. Mahomesian, which is not an adjective I'm going to use a lot, I promise. I'm not going to throw him in that category until I see it, until I see the results that show that. So for, this is kind of a default, like a scare. Oh, you don't want to make the hard pick. You don't want to put the Bears up there. You don't want to put the Bears in the playoffs. I don't. I'm going to be honest, I don't. It's not, I'll stay away from the rookie quarterback that's, he might have a good situation, but I'm not going to sit here and say he's the second coming of Mahomes and he's just going to hit the ground running. It's hard for me to say that, especially for a team and an organization that literally has the worst quarterback history in football. You have nothing, in anything good that the Bears fans see. I'm from around here. I'm not from Chicago, but I am up there enough. I'm from the area, the general area. There's a bunch of Bears fans here. You might be getting a little bit too high on this supply right now, just because you're dying for a change, dying for that success. It doesn't mean it's gonna happen here, man. It doesn't mean it's gonna happen this year. They're gonna be third. in the NFC North. Top two, NFC North. I have both of these teams making the playoffs. So the order doesn't really matter too much. And for what it's worth, I think the Packers could definitely outright win this division. I think they can do it. Because when you have a quarterback that showed that he can go into a playoff game and beat the dog shit out of the Cowboys, a regular season phenom, and you show that it looks like everybody that that Jordan Love has thrown the ball to can be a wide receiver 1 or 2. I mean, how can I deny that? You added Josh Jacobs. I thought last year Aaron Jones, overrated, honestly washed. Him and Derrick Henry, I think, are getting to the, yes, you had your era. You were, a notable running back in your prime. But I think he's not in his prime anymore. A.J. Dillon, neck, out of the year. They needed something in the run game. And Josh Jacobs is definitely that dude, man. He ran for over 1,000 2 years ago on the Raiders. Literally the only fucking thing the Raiders could be like, yes, give Josh Jacobs the ball 20 times. He'll have a respectable game, and we won't look like we are completely inept. So he's going to he could definitely run for another 1,000 on the Packers. If you don't want Jordan Love to carry the load, I don't think he should have to. You have now a guy where you can feed him the ball almost 20 times a game if you wanted to. You don't have to make Jordan Love prove he's worth that money he just got. You gave him the money because that's the quarterback market in the NFL. A good guy is going to get great money because that's what the position is valued at. That's what everybody sees quarterbacks in the NFL. So he's going to get that money. As long as you run that offense, as long as Matt LaFleur runs the offense, like he doesn't have to make Jordan Love prove he's worth his money, I don't think there's a real cap on what the Packers season can be. The defense, Rashawn Gary and company, I mean, they have enough pieces on defense. They showed they were good enough on defense to, I mean, they showed they were good enough to beat the 49ers last year. And to my estimation, there's nothing that says they should take a huge step back. I can only see a step forward with the Packers. Now, usually there's a sophomore slump for somebody. Somebody's going to have to take a step back, usually, is what history tells us. But in this division where you have a actual rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams and a team with almost nothing to play for in the Vikings except for a top pick, I think there's no reason to say that the Packers can't be top 2 in this division. And quite frankly, when you're looking at the guys who aren't here, the guys who are here, I don't have a splash in the NFC in terms of who is and isn't making the playoffs. Because, every year there's new teams in the playoffs and all that, worst to first. But the NFC, it's going to be tougher because I feel like the Bears are obviously going to be a factor now. They're not going to be like, oh, okay, the Bears, as long as Justin Fields doesn't somehow carry that bum-ass offense, we'll be all right. They're gonna make life harder for the NFC. The Falcons are obviously gonna make life harder for the NFC. Would I like I said, it would suck for the Falcons to take a spot from the Packers, the Lions, just any team that made it last year, really. I feel like if these NFC teams, it's hard to see a team that just got terribly worse and is just gonna bottom out. I think if you're gonna pick a new team, you would pick the Falcons. And if you were gonna pick a team to go worst to first, it would be the Bears, I guess. It wouldn't be the Commanders, but I just don't see a worst to first in the NFC, which means that I don't see any crazy surprise. This is my full playoff picture. I'll talk about the Lions real quick. I think Jared Goff, I think when you start talking about dark horse MVP candidates, I think Jared Goff is going to be in the same boat as he was last year. If the Lions win another 12, 13 games and Jared Goff has a good to great week every week because he's playing mostly in a dome, most season, I think only has 2 or 3 games not in a dome. The offensive line should maintain a spot atop amongst the best in the league. Jahmyr Gibbs, in his second year, he is going to figure more shit out. I think the biggest thing for the Lions is, can Jameson Williams prove that he is that second guy? Last year, Josh Reynolds, there were games where Khalif Raymond was obviously the third guy on the team, and Jameson Williams had some problems. I remember there was a throw against the Bucks. He just couldn't find it, a wide open tutty. He just let go, and his seeing the deep ball wasn't his strong suit last season. Can he make a difference, and can he improve to the point where you now have this 1-2 punch? If you can do that and establish, because Amon-Ra is top 5, top 7 in the league, obviously all pro. You can't say much else about him. As long as the Lions stay the course, I think they can finish first in the NFC North. Wouldn't be surprised if the Packers did, because the Packers slid in with 9 wins last year. If they take a couple more games, both them and the Lions finish at 11, and then the tiebreaker happens and they get it, whatever. That's fine. But I think if both of these teams in the North didn't make it, that would be kind of crazy. Although, it's a little bit harder to see the Eagles and the 49ers falling out. But I think this is a pretty solid prediction. The only thing I would even flop on is the Falcons taking it over the Buccaneers, and the Bucks just kind of, they only won 9 games last year, so I can't say that I see them winning 11-12. So, it's the first 10 wins in the South, probably. That's kind of what it usually is there. Race to 10 wins in the South, and then, the rest of those teams in the North, East, and the West. That's going to be the playoff picture for the NFC. Now, the NFC Championship game is one that is very hard to predict, man. You can go chalk. You can have... let me go back full screen, but you can go chalk and have, Niners, Eagles, shit. Some people might even have fucking Cowboys, Lions, and throw something out there. I think the NFC playoff picture is actually more interesting than the AFC one, because I think these teams that go the middle of the pack teams in the AFC, I don't know if they can make enough of a difference against the top teams to have the upset factor. But I think in the NFC, there's plenty of options for the NFC Championship game. I've seen Packers Lions, interdivision rivalry. I've seen Eagles Cowboys division rivalry. I've seen 49ers and, pick your poison. But I have a different take on it. I do have two division winners making the championship game as I currently have them um on my picture here, and I am going to go with the Buccaneers and the Rams in the NFC Championship game. I'm just kidding. It's the Lions and the Rams. That's the end. We are going to get a round one, week one Sunday night rematch in the NFC Championship game. It'll be the Lions and the Rams going head to head. Again, probably, if I had to take a guess, it would probably be in Detroit again, which would mean it would be the third straight game between these teams in Detroit. But hey, I think at the end of the day, my boy Stafford and that offense, as long as the defense comes along, I don't think there's a defense they have to fear. The Rams, when it comes to the Rams, I don't think there's a defense that they have to fear. The Eagles, if they get it together, you might have to deal with them. The Cowboys defense on paper is always good, but they are a regular season team. I'm not going to pick the Cowboys in any scenario to make the championship game or the Super Bowl. It's just not going to happen. They haven't done anything relevant, and they haven't made an actual playoff push in so fucking long. It's not happening. I'm not going to pick it. If it happens, cool. I'll be wrong. That's fine. Because it took them doing something that they just have shown that up to this point they are incapable of doing. Not happening. 49ers, it kind of bakes into my rant on the 49ers. I think at the end of the day, if you are going to knock on the door so many times, eventually whoever's on the other side is going to just stop answering. And that's the Super Bowl and the NFC Championship game. You're going to keep knocking, keep knocking. Some point there's going to be pushback from everybody else. I mean, last year the Packers had them. They could have had them, and we could have had Packers Lions last year. I think the Rams are going to take their spot, and as long as they don't match up with the Lions, until then, I have them getting to the championship game. The reason why the Lions scare me is because I think, like last year, the offense can go toe-to-toe. And they did, and they beat them. I think if they see the Bucks, dust. I think if they see the Cowboys, I'm not going to pick the Cowboys to win that game. The defense is just too soft in the postseason. The Packers put belt to ass. The 49ers, I mean, when Dak couldn't spike the ball, they just simply outplayed the Cowboys. I think when it comes to postseason football, the Cowboys can simply just be outplayed. And I believe in Matt Stafford more than I believe in Jalen Hurts. So that's why I would pick them over the Eagles. I get the defenses, as of right now, when I'm recording this, September 6th, their defenses aren't terribly different, in my opinion. I think you have a defensive line in Philly, but the rest is, to be determined. Same with the Rams. But I believe in Sean McVay more than I believe in Nick Sirianni. I believe in Dan Campbell more than I believe in Mike McCarthy, Todd Bowles, and as long as and for the Lions, I think the only thing stopping them from getting to the championship game is themselves. I think every matchup possible for them is a winnable game. I think the Packers, obviously division rivalry, that can go whatever way. The Buccaneers, dust, just like last year. Although they didn't really, put their foot on their necks like you might think, but still, a win. Cowboys, I wouldn't even need to see the line for it. I'm taking the Lions. The Eagles, I think that would be really good because the Eagles could probably control the ball, give the Lions less of an opportunity to score on offense. Same thing with the 49ers. But last year, I thought they should have beat the 49ers too. The Lions kind of gave that game to them, or Purdy came back, whoever you want to give credit for that. But I think the Lions get to the championship game again. I think they run it back, and this time I think it's against the Los Angeles Rams, which means I've only got the Super Bowl to pick. Who do I think is gonna make the Super Bowl? I have the Jets, Texans, Lions, Rams in the Final Four. Who's winning these games and who's making it? The AFC Championship game, I think, if this were to be the matchup, Jets versus Texans, I think, bias aside, take the cap off. I think it would mean Aaron Rodgers has had a good season, maybe even great. CJ Stroud would probably be around the same, and their defense would be a D'Amico Ryans defense, which is top. But I think our styles are pretty similar, and they're gonna kind of clash. It's gonna be a defensive game, probably gonna be a low-scoring game. I wouldn't expect fireworks in a Jets versus Texans AFC Championship game. But money on the line, money in the middle of the table for a potential game-saving drive where points are at a premium, give me Aaron Rodgers. And that's not me just saying, it's the Jets, they're going to win. I think, again, if this is the matchup, the odds are that the defenses will play to roughly a standstill because that's the type of talent that's on both sides. And the offenses, when it comes to skills and when it comes to just their quarterbacks being that dude, I think that's also similar. And another X factor I think the Jets will be able to do all season that the Texans will be struggling to find all year, the run game. Joe Mixon, you're going to count on Joe Mixon to take you home in a championship game when points are at a premium and the offense can't really just sling it everywhere? Give me Breece Hall. Give me Aaron Rodgers. Give me the Jets. Give me the New York Jets in the Super Bowl. Obviously, this was coming. I've been recording for almost 2 hours to tell you something you probably should have already known. The New York Football Jets will be in the Super Bowl against the NFC Championship game representative, Lions and Rams. The Rams couldn't outgun them last time. We'll see what happens this Sunday and see if anything changes there. But I think the AFC Championship game would be a low-scoring, knock-down, drag-them-out affair. I think the NFC Championship game will be bombs away. Who's going to score enough points? Who on either defense is going to make the difference? Aiden Hutchinson? That dude. But Jared Verse, I've got some hometown bias. Braden Fisk. Can they step up? Lions secondary improved. Can they do a better job against Puka and Cooper Kupp? My NFC representative is the Detroit Lions, meaning my Super Bowl pick for the 2024-2025 season will be the New York Jets facing off against the Detroit Lions. Let me get the Let me get the edit all smooth real quick. Smooth as in paint smooth. Top left corner, that's it. I've been recording for 10 seconds away from 2 hours. I just dumped every thought I had into all these teams, why they might finish where they are. And I gave you not a full bracket, but who I think the final four will be and who I think is going to make it here in the end. 2024, 2025, I think these are the divisions. These are the conference champions. This is the Super Bowl. Jets taking down the Lions in what I would expect to be a style make the fight match where our defense, as long as they hold the Lions offense, which won't be easy, we should be able to generate enough offense against a defense who, you know, the lights might be too bright. There's a lot of young cats on that defense as well. No pun intended. But there you have it. I wanted to do these maybe in separate videos, but I ran out of time, and I wanted to do this and at least record this before Packers Eagles in Brazil here in about 4 hours, just to get my thoughts out there. All of my preseason thoughts. If you have any questions, ask in the comments, find my Twitter, whatever you want, I'll answer those questions. But these are my official picks. I might do a week by week video every week, just checking in on the league, make my picks maybe for the week. I am a bit of a gambler, at least when the NFL rolls around. I don't enjoy betting baseball at all. And the NBA is cool, but not on a night-to-night basis. Because the NFL, any day there's a game on it, you know, there's probably something good there. So, maybe for more content, I got this video out, which is not something I thought I would be able to do. You know, I didn't think I was going to sit here for 2 hours and upload this, because I kind of think about doing this every year. But hey, you enjoyed it sitting here for 2 hours, shit, like, sub. I'm gonna try and pump more content out for the NFL. I might end up doing some college football content. I'm able to be around college football way more this year because it's my job. Watch games, do secondary and primary, you know, data and scouting and shit like that. So maybe that'll be fun. Maybe that'll be something I'll look into. We'll see how the college year is going, and let's see how much I get a feel for it, because I admittedly can't, you know, follow it as close as I follow the NFL, because once the NFL starts, it's the NFL. Besides, you know, Saturdays, which are going to be an obligation, but yeah. So, hey, that's it. I mean, if anything surprised you, I mean, you could throw some hate in the comments too. It doesn't matter. But those are my picks. Might hit you with another pick style video on the weekend. We'll see though. Peace.